Today, I want to share with you a perspective that might feel unconventional. We're going to dive into the concept of evil, not as society or religion might commonly portray it, but as something very different. For a spiritually awakened, enlightened being, the idea of evil takes on a different meaning altogether. It's not about sinister forces lurking to sabotage us or external devils that wield power over us. No, evil is something much subtler, much more complex, and, in many ways, deeply misunderstood. Most people live under the shadow of what they've been taught, of the fears and beliefs passed down about evil and darkness. We're told that evil is an entity, something out there, a force waiting to tempt us, to lead us astray. But what if I told you that this view is incomplete? What if I told you that evil is not a thing in itself, but rather a lack, an absence, a shadow that appears when the light of understanding is dim? Evil, for the awakened mind, is not something inherent in the world. It's partial knowledge, an error, a distortion on the path toward truth and right. Think of it like this. When you are learning a skill, whether it's music or painting, you don't get everything right on the first try. There are mistakes, errors, wrong notes, and colors that don't blend. Does this mean you are bad at it, or that you'll never succeed? No, it's part of the learning process, a deviation that eventually leads you toward mastery. Evil, in the same sense, is humanity's deviation in the journey of understanding, an experiment of free will that sometimes strays from harmony and unity. You see, God is all-knowing, infinite wisdom itself. In the divine, there is no concept of evil. God doesn't have room for these errors because God embodies absolute knowledge. Evil exists as a human construct, a result of our limitations, our inability to see the full picture. Our free will, when paired with limited knowledge, sometimes leads us to actions or beliefs that harm ourselves or others. But this isn't because we are fundamentally bad. It's because we don't yet know enough, and we're in the process of learning. There's a saying, darkness is not something that exists on its own. It is merely the absence of light. In the same way, evil is not a force, but an absence, a void where understanding has not yet reached. When we make choices that seem wrong or bad, it's often because we lack the clarity, the wisdom, or the understanding needed to make a more aligned choice. We're operating with partial knowledge, and so we stumble, we err. Evil then becomes a kind of teacher. It shows us what doesn't work, what leads us away from peace, away from love, away from unity. And through these lessons, we learn, we grow, we move closer to truth. The philosopher Socrates once said, "There is only one good knowledge and one evil, ignorance." He understood that all harm comes from a lack of understanding, a lack of insight. If we knew the full implications of our actions, if we had absolute clarity, we would choose differently. Imagine you have a spark of the divine within you, a piece of God's love, God's wisdom, God's light. All of us do. And because of this, we are drawn, whether consciously or unconsciously, toward that light, toward harmony. But when we veer off course, when we act from a place of fear, anger, or greed, it's not because we're innately evil. It's because we're lost, momentarily blinded by the illusion of separation, the illusion that we are not enough or that others are our enemies. The awakened mind sees evil not as something to fear, but as something to understand. Evil is a tool, an experiment of sorts, revealing to us the consequences of straying from the path of truth and unity. It is the soul's way of learning, through contrast, what truly matters. Think of it as a wrong track, a detour on the way to truth. The mistakes we make, the errors of humanity, are all part of a collective journey toward realizing who we truly are, of uncovering the deeper truth that lies beyond appearances. In this sense, to conquer evil is not to fight against it, but to transcend it through understanding. We overcome evil by expanding our awareness, by illuminating the dark corners of our mind with knowledge, compassion, and wisdom. God, the divine source, does not seek to destroy us for our errors, nor does God see us as inherently flawed. The divine sees every step we take, every mistake, as part of a sacred journey of discovery. Because God is not separate from us. We are expressions of that same source, learning, evolving, growing into greater expressions of love and wisdom. This is the realization that frees us. Evil, as we perceive it, is man-made. It is the byproduct of our own misunderstandings and our own choices, driven by limited knowledge. And while it may cause suffering, it also leads us closer to enlightenment, closer to harmony. When we begin to view evil as a perspective born from ignorance, we see that our greatest tool for overcoming it is understanding, compassion, and unity with the divine within us. So I invite you to shift your perspective. Instead of seeing evil as a threat, see it as an invitation to grow. See it as a signpost on the path to deeper awareness. And understand that every shadow is an opportunity to bring in more light. By facing these shadows with courage and wisdom, we can transcend the illusion of separation and step into a life aligned with the divine truth, the truth that is ever present within us.